The Realm. Do you know what the Realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 video. Since the new Game of Thrones trailer still has everyone excited, I want to make another video based on some of the things we could see. As you all know, there are hundreds or even thousands of theories on the internet about Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. In fact, I have even made a bunch of those videos myself. As fans of the show, I think we all like to try to figure out how some of the different storylines within the show will come to an end. Well, thanks to the new trailer, we may have some more evidence that supports some of these theories or predictions. What I want to do today is take another look at some of the images from the trailer that supports these theories. At the end of the video, let me know which ones you think are most likely to come true. The first theory I want to talk about has to do with our old friend Gendry. I actually made a video about this over 2 years ago. In the new Game of Thrones trailer, we can see Gendry working in the forges of Winterfell. As of right now, we know Gendry will be making weapons out of the dragonglass from Dragonstone. We can see the dragonglass laying all around Gendry's workshop. He was most likely the one that made the new dragonglass dagger we can see Arya Stark holding up in the trailer. Now, if you look and listen very carefully during Gendry's scene in the trailer, you can see that Gendry is making more than just dragonglass weapons. It looks like Gendry might be making a new sword. Now, the million-dollar question is, will Gendry make any weapons out of Valyrian steel? Now, we all know that the methods to making brand new Valyrian steel have either been lost or forgotten over time. However, we have seen someone reforge it before. Tywin Lannister was able to find someone to do this with Ned Stark's Valyrian steel sword Ice. In the television show, Tywin Lannister said the blacksmith he hired was from Volantis, which just so happens to be the same place Melisandre was heading during last season. Now, in the books, the character that reforges Ice is actually the same man that Gendry worked for, which is Toppo Mott. Don't you find that to be just a little interesting? I know I do. Since Gendry's mentor knew how to rework Valyrian steel, this leads many fans, including myself, to believe there might have been a very good chance he might have shown, or at least told Gendry how to do this too. After all, Gendry is Robert Baratheon's son, which obviously makes him a very important character, even if he's not one of the main characters. Why would you have Gendry work for one of the very few men who knew how to rework Valyrian steel unless you were going to have Gendry make some later in the story? Now, as I said before, unfortunately, Game of Thrones decided to change that in their show. Gendry's mentor was not the one that reforged Ice. However, there are still a few ways they can have Gendry do this. Obviously, the first thing we would need to happen is Gendry needs to get his hands on Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper. Well, luckily both of those swords will be in Winterfell next season at the same time. Brienne is already there with hers, and as we all know, Jaime Lannister is currently on his way there with the other half of Ice. Now, we all know that the two swords are usually better than one, especially when it comes to Ice because that sword was just too damn big. It would be very hard for someone to carry a sword of that size into battle, unless you were one of the damn Clegane brothers. So it might not make that much sense to turn these two swords into one right before the big battle. However, this is something they can do after all the fighting is over. Assuming they are able to defeat the army of the dead and Cersei and Euron, then maybe that's when the Starks could get their sword back. We have already seen Jaime give a Valyrian steel sword away once before, so there is a good chance that he could do it again. Jaime probably already feels bad for trying to murder Bran Stark, and now that he's trying to do the right thing, he might do the right thing with the sword too. Not to mention, there is always a chance that Jaime could die. Then of course, someone would have to claim that sword. Now when it comes to Brienne, she has already pledged her sword to House Stark. Once the fighting is over, maybe she gives it back to Sansa or House Stark in general. That's assuming Brienne doesn't die too. Now if Jaime and Brienne both died, then it would make it kinda easy for the Starks to get the swords back. So just for the sake of this video, let's say they do get both of the swords back. We still need a way for Gendry to know how to reforge them. How would Gendry learn how to do this if his mentor did not teach him in the show? Well, there are actually 3 different ways I think they could do this. The first way has to do with Bran Stark. As we all know, Bran is able to look back in time and see just about anything that he wants. Maybe Bran could go back and see how Valyrian steel was made. We know that dragons are involved in the process to some extent. Other than that, we really don't know what else it takes to make these swords from scratch. Now the good thing is, Dany already has 2 dragons, so if they would need a dragonfire to do this, I'm sure Daenerys wouldn't have a problem helping. Another way they could have Gendry learn this is through Samwell Tarly. As we all know, right as Sam was getting ready to leave the Citadel, he went into the library and he grabbed a bunch of books and documents to take with him. He knew that these things would help him and Jon during the battle against the Night King. Now, we don't know what's inside of them yet, but maybe Sam comes across the method to making Valyrian steel. Sam might even find it in the books, then tell Bran to go back and look to see exactly how it was done. Then they could just tell Gendry what to do. The other option has to do with Melisandre. Like I said earlier, we know Melisandre was on her way to Volantis, and that's the same location Tywin found his blacksmith to melt down ice and remake it into 2 swords. We know that Melisandre did not go over there just to take a vacation. Melisandre is on a mission to find someone or something to help them defeat the Night King. Until we find out what that is, maybe one of those things she figures out is how to make more Valyrian steel. Or maybe she even brings back a blacksmith that knows how. I know that some of you have heard me talk about this in some of my old videos, but after the new trailer came out, I had to talk about it again because we do see Gendry making weapons, but most importantly, we saw Gendry making a new sword. Let me know if you think House Stark will get ice back by the end of the show. Let's move on to the next one. Now I want to talk about Jon Snow riding a dragon. This is one of those ideas that has been around for a very long time. Well, they finally did confirm that Jon was a Targaryen in the television show. Not only did we find out he was a Targaryen, but we also found out he is no longer a bastard because Rhaegar and Lyanna did get married. Now that we know Jon is a Targaryen, it seems natural for him to start to have a relationship with the dragons. We actually started to see this right away. Jon and Drogon had a nice scene together last season. We even got to see several characters ride on Drogon with Daenerys when they went beyond the wall, but we still haven't seen Jon Snow climb on top of a dragon yet. Well, Dany only has 2 dragons left. One of those dragons just so happens to be named after Jon Snow's daddy, which is Rhaegal. In the new trailer, we can see Jon and Daenerys walking up to both of the dragons. It almost looks like they are out in the middle of nowhere. We also don't see anyone else in that scene, so you have to wonder, how did Jon and Daenerys get there? Did they fly the dragons to that location? Because I don't see any horses around them, so maybe they were both taking the dragons for a ride. There is another scene in the trailer where we can see both of the dragons flying together. I've noticed that some fans actually think Jon and Daenerys are riding on their backs, only HBO had them digitally removed from the scene, that way it doesn't ruin it. I'm not so sure if that's the case, but I do think it's time for Jon to ride a dragon. As far as we know, Jon and Dany are the 2 last Targaryens left. They are even in a relationship together, and it would make sense for both of these Targaryens to be riding the last 2 living dragons. That would be symmetry, ladies and gentlemen. It was also revealed that Jon's true name is Aegon Targaryen. And what do we know about one of the most famous Aegon Targaryens? Well, we know that he rode a dragon, among many other things. So I believe there is a very good chance that this will happen, but let me know what you think because the trailer might have been giving us some more evidence. Now I want to move on to one of the other scenes from the trailer. This next one has to do with Ghost, Nymeria, and her pack. Now as you all know, we hardly ever get to see the direwolves anymore. We did get to see Nymeria last season, but there was no sign of Ghost. This has made a lot of fans, including myself, very upset. We all know that it cost a lot of money to bring those animals to life, but Ghost should be like an extension of Jon. Whenever Jon is in Winterfell, we should see Ghost at least every once in a while. Well, I think the showrunners have heard our complaints because they made sure to remind us we will see Ghost next season. Now when it comes to Nymeria, things are a little different. She hasn't been at Arya's side since the 2nd episode of the show. Not to mention, Arya was gone from Westeros for a very long time, so I do understand why we haven't seen Nymeria in so long. Now that Arya is back in Winterfell and already reunited with Nymeria once, this makes most of us wonder if we will ever see them together again. Now we did see Arya try to get Nymeria to go home with her, but she has become too wild, just like Arya. However, that doesn't mean she won't show up again. Once Winterfell comes under attack, Nymeria might start to get the sense that Arya is in trouble. Therefore, she might show up during the battle. In fact, some fans think there was even a scene of her in the trailer. There is a scene from the trailer where we can see everyone starting to run back inside of the castle gates. During all of that chaos, there looks to be a scene where we can see the horses running as well. But some fans think that could actually be Nymeria and her pack. Now, I can't really be too sure what that is, but I have noticed some fans have said that the stomachs of those animals are way too low to the ground to be horses. I will say that is a very interesting observation, but let me show you something else. The author of the original story said something during an interview that may or may not confirm that. When George R. R. Martin sat down with Mashable, he said something about Nymeria that had me very excited. George said, "You know, I don't like to give things away," says Martin, a grin spreading across his face. "But you don't hang a giant wolf pack on the wall unless you intend to use it." What George basically said is, of course Nymeria and her pack will show up. Why else would you introduce that into the story unless you wanted to use it? So, if this is what George wants to do at the end of his story, then maybe Game of Thrones does the same thing. Maybe there is a good reason why they shown Arya and Nymeria reunite last season. That could be foreshadowing for an even bigger scene next season. Let me know if you think that's what we see in the trailer. I'm not so sure myself, but I do think they could show up during the battle. As we all know, Arya and Nymeria do have a special connection, so if Arya does find herself in some serious trouble, which we know she does based on some of the other scenes from the trailer, then maybe Nymeria shows up to try to save her. Anyways, those are just some of the theories I wanted to talk about because I really didn't say a whole lot about them in my trailer breakdown video. I was noticing that some of you were asking me about them, so I figured this would be a good time to talk about them. Most of you should already know that I want Gendry to reforge ice at the end of the season. This is something I have been talking about ever since I started my channel, really. Also, I do think Jon will ride a dragon, and like I said, I think there is a very good chance that Nymeria does show up. They already confirmed that we will see some scenes with Ghost, but Nymeria could be another one of those X factors. Let me know which one of these you think will end up coming true. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. I want to thank everyone for watching today's video, I really appreciate that, and I also want to thank everyone on Patreon for continuing to support the channel. I hope y'all have a great day. I will see you again very soon. Bye.